Hello everyone, my dear friends. It's me again, Igor Pogodin, the person who has spent most of his life working in psychotherapy. And today we're going to talk about emotions and feelings. What is the difference between the two? Why you shouldn't ignore them? Why and how we become seriously ill when we don't want to pay attention to our emotions? And most importantly, how to deal with them in a way that allows us to be healthy and happy. And why emotions have a very strong impact on the relationships we build. So stay with me until the end and I hope you'll find answers to your questions. Are you familiar with the situation where you get completely tangled up in your emotions? It feels like there's some kind of energy inside. There are so many emotions that you're overflowing, but you don't know what's actually happening to you. And the question arises, how do I understand my emotions? Are you familiar with the situation when you find yourself in some kind of crisis? Everything feels terrible. Life is pressing down on you. You don't know how to go on living. All you want is for it all to just disappear. Most likely, in this situation, you're only aware of one or two emotions, and your only wish is for them to go away because they make you feel uncomfortable and anxious. And you start trying to do something about it. You turn against your emotions because they seem like something evil to you. But in fact, we need emotions. Emotions and feelings are useful. They actually exist to make our lives happier, not to harm us. Because it's only thanks to emotions that we understand what we want in life. They are precisely the bridge between our needs, desires, and bodily reactions. Emotions help us build relationships with other people. They speed up this process. Emotions help us describe how we live in contact with others. Emotions draw energy from our needs, which we require in order to change something in our relationships. If you don't pay attention to your feelings and emotions when interacting with others, you won't make any progress in your relationships. You'll just be tossed around, overwhelmed, and nothing will change in your life. And then all relationships end in divorce, a permanent crisis. Even if you live together your whole life, until death, you're just tormenting each other until the end, and you have no compass for growth. It is precisely feelings and emotions that serve as the compass you should use to navigate relationships. But first, let's talk about how feelings differ from emotions, because we often use them interchangeably. Feelings and emotions, emotions and feelings. Of course, there is a difference between them. Emotions are an immediate reaction to events, while feelings are connected to the people and relationships we are in when we experience those events. Emotions are immediate, vivid manifestations. They are usually brief, but quite intense in the moment. For example, fear, pain, horror, all of these are emotions. But the moment our emotions go beyond the event itself and become more or less prolonged, tied to relationships, then, of course, we experience them less intensely on the one hand, but for a longer time on the other. That's how tenderness, gratitude, and love work. They are not as loud or as vivid, but they have a much deeper impact on our lives. Right. Emotions are a reaction to momentary events, while feelings relate to an entire segment of our lives. So you'll notice that an emotion comes and goes, but feelings remain, because they are tied to a significant part of our lives. And that's why you have to take them into account even more than emotions. If emotions are a momentary marker that something is wrong, that something needs to be changed right now in your life, then feelings help transform an entire period of life, help you face crises, help deepen relationships, and therefore they turn out to be even more important for us. And finally, emotions are inherent in both humans and animals, whereas feelings are unique to humans alone. So what happens in our lives when we ignore our emotions? We start to get sick. We begin to ruin our relationships with other people. We find ourselves in permanent, constant crises. In the end, we end up in depression and apathy. Often, we even use a special term, emotional burnout, as if there are so many emotions, but we handle them so incorrectly that in the end, we find ourselves in depression, have to take antidepressants, and can get out of deep sadness, loss of hope for the future, total apathy, decreased productivity, loss of appetite, insomnia, and so on and so on and so on. But actually, it's nothing special. When you pay attention to your feelings, the question arises. How do you understand your emotions? By the way, this is one of the most common questions my followers ask me. I'll try to answer it for you, my friends. But before I answer this question, I recommend that you think about the fact that before I answer this question, I recommend you consider that a theoretical answer is important and useful, But the most important thing that happens in our lives is when you start to change something through your own experience. And the best way to do this is through psychotherapy, either individual or group psychotherapy. Both options are available to us at the Academy. And you will find in the description below, you will find several links in the description where you can choose the program that suits you and select your therapist. You can also send a direct message in any social network, and I will recommend what is best for you personally. So how should we deal with emotions? How do we understand them? The answer is you don't. You can't understand emotions. And even if you try to understand them, it doesn't lead to any changes. At some point, one of the founders at some point, Erhard Seminar Training's creator, Werner Erhard, used a quote along these lines: "Understanding is a prize for fools." She may be a little rough, but she is loyal. Because in reality, you've probably noticed that understanding doesn't actually lead to change. You say, well, I get it intellectually, but nothing changes. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. It's not because you don't understand well enough or are missing something. It's because understanding doesn't bring about change. The same goes for understanding emotions. It doesn't change anything either. Now you've understood what you're suffering from, but you still remain stuck in the same place. And then your pain, your fear, your shame become endless. Nothing changes in your life. So what is the alternative? The alternative to understanding is awareness. And let me explain what I mean by that. Our problem is that we fail to notice much of what happens in our lives. And we don't notice the emotions that arise here. We don't notice our desires. We don't notice our bodily reactions, our bodily intentions when interacting with other people. We don't notice that we have changed. We don't notice that the people close to us have changed. We don't notice what suits us and what doesn't when interacting with other people. Ultimately, we don't notice when our boundaries have been violated, and the closest thing available to us is to discover emotions we hadn't seen before, to uncover feelings we gave up on long ago. Why is this important? Because throughout our entire lives, this is actually why we mess up, build crooked relationships, and get sick. We have rejected certain important feelings and emotions, especially feelings, precisely because they are woven into the fabric of relationships. And our feelings were inconvenient. Or we were immediately told that these feelings we were experiencing were something we needed to do something about. For example, dad would bang his fist on the table and say, "Stop being angry." And mom would say, "Aren't you ashamed?" Or, "Don't be afraid, everything is fine. Don't be afraid, I'm with you. Everything is normal. Are you a coward? Why are you afraid?" And then some of our, or she'd say, "Ugh, all this sappy affection." And then tenderness, fear, shame, pain, or some other feelings just seem to disappear from our lives. As if, but in reality, they remain and become the building blocks for our illnesses. In one of the videos, I might explain in more detail how this happens. But here, we focus on what to do about it. Therefore, your main task is pay attention to discover what you haven't seen for many, many years, what you've forgotten about, or maybe what has never even been present in your life. For example, if you've never seen what love looks like, then it's not just that you don't know what it's called, you've never felt anything connected to it at all. Only when you are in contact with another person, whether it's a psychotherapist or, say, a close partner who has appeared in your life photo, you begin to experience something that you will later call love. It's only then that you encounter this. So first you need to recognize it, to see it. There are two words that are, in one way or another, connected to awareness. The first word is still closely related to the Russian verb to understand. It refers to the content of consciousness. That's how we say it, consciousness. In my consciousness right now. In your consciousness, there is only what you're used to seeing. But the second noun refers to the process itself and is called awareness. And it is closer to another Russian verb, which means to discover, to notice. Fritz, the first founder of the therapy, has a beautiful phrase: "Let the world make an impression on you." Therefore, all you need to do, step number one, is to open your eyes, ears, and heart and discover, what new things am I observing in my life right now? What new things do I see in the people who are in front of me right now? And how have I changed over the past month? And how has my friend who is sitting across from me changed over the last 2 hours of our conversation? What new things have I noticed in the intonations, phrases, gestures, voice, facial expressions, pupils, posture, or gestures? What new things have I noticed? And when you step out into your building's courtyard, what has changed there? How are the birds singing? I remember a situation like this back when I had just started practicing psychotherapy. At that time, I was serving in the army and would walk to my unit through what was called the Field of Fools. It was a section of the training ground specifically used for practicing digging and filling in various frames, trenches, foxholes, and so on. My route to the unit always passed through it. I had been walking there for 2 years before. At some point after I had recently started practicing psychotherapy, specifically Gestalt therapy, I suddenly realized that the birds were singing. And I come in all excited and say to my fellow soldiers, "Can you imagine the birds are singing on the Field of Fools?" They reply, "They've always been singing there. For 2 years, I walked the same road and never heard the birds singing." That's how it is in our lives too. Have you ever noticed that there is tenderness in your life and in your relationships? You kept missing it all the time. What is irritation, anger? You slip through, just like you missed feeling hurt. But now you've noticed it, so now try to notice something new. Contact, especially healing contact with others, and the kind that transforms you during a crisis is directly connected to this word, to discover that there is something new. Make this a daily practice. When you wash the dishes, what is new in your sensations, your reactions, your thoughts? When you interact with loved ones, what is new there? When you go outside, what is new there? When you read a book, what new thing did you catch in that book? When you watch movies, how does your heart respond? And what new reactions or feelings do you encounter? And you will start to notice more. At some point, a certain cumulative effect will occur, and more new feelings will start to appear in your life, and the next question will arise. How do I deal with all of this? And at some point, it may even seem like you have more problems. So how do you deal with this as well? What am I supposed to do with all this new information? And the question arises, how do you process it? In the usual way, you start fighting against unpleasant feelings, and you want to hold on to the pleasant ones. Neither approach works. Both will lead you along the same closed loop of suffering. All feelings are transient, they serve their purpose, and then leave. We need them as advisors. Allow them to be just as they are. And for that, you need to learn how to handle them. And the most effective way is to actually experience them. Here too, I want to distinguish between two verbs. One verb is more about, I feel, I notice, this feeling is present for me right now. And when you feel what is happening to you, it doesn't mean you won't suffer. No, if you feel pain, fear, anger, you will suffer from them. Because simply feeling without a tool for where to go next turns out to be tormenting. So what is this tool then? And here's the second thing. The second verb is to experience. That's right. It's an imperfective verb. To experience is a continuous process. It happens all the time. This means the following. Attention, friends. Allow yourself to settle into any feeling that arises in your life. Now you feel joy. Rejoice and observe your body, and again, try to notice what new is happening inside. Are you experiencing pain? Be sick. Don't try to fight the pain. It didn't come here to battle with you. She came here to help you and teach you. And you can only learn from pain if you start to come alive within it and once again observe what new things are present here. And then, against the backdrop of pain, even the pain of lost something begins to appear that leads you beyond it. Tenderness, gratitude, anger. You move beyond toxic pain. This is how grief passes. If you feel delight, love, gratitude, live in those feelings. Don't just try to say thank you and run away or declare your love and disappear. Instead, live within it. Let gratitude exist and say to the other person to whom this gratitude is directed, I am very grateful to you. Thank you. And you will notice that you'll want to slip away from this contact out of embarrassment. Allow the embarrassment, the shame that arises, the warmth, the awkwardness, the gratitude to be present. Live there without fighting anything. And then you'll notice that your life starts to change on its own. It might seem like a miracle. There's no miracle at all. In reality, the energy that was previously spent on your mistakes, on forming symptoms including chronic and the most severe ones, and on destroying your relationships, will start to return to your life and relationships, which you can use to deepen them. Allow everything to be and observe how your life changes. When you are sick, nothing changes. It's always the same thing, the same mess, the same feelings that you want to somehow deal with. But when you start to experience them, something new always appears. So stay settled into whatever arises. Don't fight it and observe what happens next. It's a universal method. Try it. I am sure your life will change. By the way, friends, there are plenty of other videos on this channel that are dedicated to how to deal with feelings. For example, I have 2, 3, or even 4 videos on this channel that are devoted to the topic of shame. This is the scourge of the 20th century. Go ahead and watch that video. Stay until the end, because at the end of the video, you'll find answers to many of your questions. This was Igor Pogodin with you. See you in new videos. And yes, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and give it a like. That way, more people will see this video. Maybe it will help someone and change someone's life. Thank you for your attention, and see you soon.